There's a fear most people never say out loud. Not the fear of dying, but the fear of what happens after. The fear that one day, after your final breath, after the noise of life goes silent, God will look at you and turn away. Not angry, not shouting, just rejection. Because deep inside, you remember things no one else knows. The promises you made and quietly broke. The prayers you only prayed when you were desperate. The moments you chose comfort over conscience. And a terrifying thought creeps in. What if I believed in God, but He never truly accepted me? If that thought has ever followed you into the night, if it has ever tightened your chest, stay here. This is not about religion. This is about you. The real fear, what we're actually afraid of. Most people don't fear hell the way movies show it. They fear exposure, standing before God with no excuses, no explanations, no comparison with others, just truth. You won't be able to say, I tried my best, I was better than most, I meant well. Because God already knows. And that's what makes the fear so personal. Not punishment, but the possibility that your life wasn't enough. The inner conflict no one talks about. Here's the honest truth. Most of us want heaven, but we also want control. We want forgiveness without surrender, grace without change, reward without transformation. And that creates a quiet tension inside us. We believe in God, but we're not sure if we trust Him fully. We follow, but we hold back. And deep down we wonder, does God see my effort or only my failure? Why this fear doesn't leave you. If God had truly rejected you, you wouldn't be worried about this. People who are rejected by truth don't wrestle with it. They don't lie awake at night. They don't question eternity. They don't feel the weight you feel. The struggle itself is a sign. A living heart wrestles. A dead heart doesn't care. A truth that changes everything. God does not reject people for being broken. He rejects people for refusing Him. There is a difference between weakness and rebellion, between falling and walking away. And if you're still here, still listening, still searching, that door is not closed. Sign 1. Your heart still feels heavy after sin. Some people sin and feel absolutely nothing. No guilt, no discomfort, no inner resistance. But others sin and feel a deep heaviness afterward. If your chest tightens after you fall, if your soul feels restless, that pain is not condemnation, it's awareness. Conviction is not rejection, it's proof that your heart is still alive. Dead hearts don't ache. Sign 2. You still think about God in your lowest moments. When life falls apart, people respond differently. Some become numb, some become angry, some run further away. But if your mind still turns toward God, even in confusion, even in frustration, that means trust still exists beneath the pain. Even broken prayers are prayers. Sign 3. You miss who you were when you were closer to God. This one is quiet but powerful. If you miss the version of yourself that felt closer to God, more alive, more honest, that longing didn't come from nowhere. Rejection does not create longing, love does. The silent guilt you carry. Maybe no one else sees it. You function, you smile, you get through the day, but at night your mind replays everything. You wonder, did I really change, or did I just learn to hide better? That weight is exhausting, and pretending you're fine takes energy. You're tired of guessing, tired of fear, tired of wondering if God is disappointed in you. A moment of honesty. Let me say this gently. God is not surprised by you, not by your struggle, not by your weakness, not by your questions. If He wanted to reject you, He wouldn't still be drawing you. The pull you feel back to Him, that's not guilt, that's mercy. Transition to part 2, Retention Bridge. In the next part, we're going to go deeper. We'll talk about why discomfort with sin matters, why pretending is more dangerous than failing, and how God actually looks at a person's life. Because what God sees is not what you think he sees.
Sign 4. You feel uncomfortable with who you become when you drift. Let's be honest. Sin doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels normal. You still wake up, still go to work, still talk to people, but something inside you feels off. You're not as patient, not as kind, not as alive. If you notice that change, if you dislike who you become when you drift from God, that discomfort matters. People who are rejected by truth don't feel that tension. They adapt to darkness, but you haven't. That uneasiness is not guilt, it's alignment trying to pull you back. Sign 5. You are tired of pretending. This one is important. There was a time when surface-level faith was enough, saying the right words, showing up when expected, looking spiritual. But now it feels empty. You don't want to pretend anymore. You don't want religion without honesty. You don't want faith without truth. If pretending exhausts you, that's a sign of growth, not failure. God is not impressed by performance. He is drawn to honesty. And honest people are never rejected. Sign 6. You still turn back even after failing again. This one hurts to admit because it's embarrassing to fail after you thought you were past it, to promise change and fall again. But here's what matters. Did you stay down or did you turn back, even slowly, even quietly? People who are rejected stop returning, but you didn't. You came back with less confidence, but more honesty. And God values honesty more than confidence. The misunderstanding that damages faith. Many people think God's acceptance works like this. If I do well, he stays close. If I fail, he steps back. But that's not how grace works. Grace does not follow your consistency. It follows your direction. When you fall, God watches one thing. Do you run away or do you turn back? That choice matters more than you realize. Sign 7. You fear losing God more than losing comfort. Think about this carefully. People who don't love God don't fear losing him. If the thought of distance from God feels unbearable, that fear is rooted in relationship. Fear of loss comes from love, not obligation, and love is never ignored by God. The greed we don't talk about. Honest moment. Let's talk honestly for a moment. There is a quiet greed inside all of us. We want heaven, but we want control too. We want forgiveness, but not always transformation. We want God close, but not interfering. And when we feel this tension, we assume God must be disappointed. But God already knows this struggle. He doesn't reject you for being conflicted. He only rejects those who refuse him completely, and you haven't. Sign 8. You are still willing to be corrected. Correction is uncomfortable. It challenges ego. It exposes blind spots. But rejection doesn't correct. Rejection abandons. If you're still open to being shaped, still listening, still willing to change, that means God is still working with you, not against you. Sign 9. You are still seeking, not hiding. This is one of the clearest signs. People who are rejected by truth stop seeking it. They distract themselves, they harden themselves, they avoid silence. But you are here, listening, reflecting, letting this reach you. That matters more than you think. Seeking is evidence of life. What God is actually looking at. God does not replay your worst moments the way you do. He looks at patterns, at direction, at where your heart turns when everything else falls apart. Failure does not shock God. Refusal does. And you are still turning toward him. A quiet realization. You don't need to convince God to accept you. You need to stop assuming he already decided against you. If rejection were your destiny, this restlessness wouldn't exist. The pull you feel back to Him, that's not guilt, that's grace.
Where everything begins to slow down. By now, something inside you has probably shifted. Not excitement, not adrenaline, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when fear stops shouting. And this is where we talk about what most people never reach: rest. The biggest fear was never about death. Let's be honest, your fear was never really about dying. It was about standing there, fully known, and feeling unwanted. The thought that after all the effort, all the guilt, all the trying, God would say nothing. But here's what changes everything. God doesn't wait until after death to decide how He feels about you. He already knows, and He's already responding. What rejection actually looks like. Rejection is cold. It pushes away. It cuts off. It leaves you numb. But what you feel is different. You feel drawn. You feel convicted. You feel restless when you drift. That's not rejection. That's relationship. People who are rejected don't feel pulled back. They feel nothing. Why peace has been hard for you. Peace is hard when you believe you're on trial, when you think every mistake moves God further away, so you stay alert, guarded, always checking yourself. But constant self-judgment was never meant to be your home. God doesn't invite you into fear. He invites you into trust. The moment you've been missing. There is a moment that changes everything. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with answers to everything. It's simply this realization: I don't need to keep proving myself. You were never holding God's approval hostage. You were holding yourself hostage. What God sees when He looks at you. God doesn't zoom in only on your failures. He sees the full picture. He sees the nights you wanted to give up but didn't, the times you failed but still returned, the prayers you couldn't finish, the faith that felt small but stayed alive. Direction matters more than perfection, and your direction has always been back toward Him. Why your story isn't over. If God wanted to reject you, He wouldn't still be shaping you. He wouldn't still be stirring your heart. He wouldn't still be speaking to you like this. The fact that you're still sensitive, still listening, still open, means grace is still working. The final shift, from fear to trust. This is the shift. You stop asking, am I good enough? And you start resting in, He knows me and He hasn't let go. Trust doesn't erase struggle. It just removes the fear that struggle equals rejection. A different way to live. Imagine living without constantly checking, did I mess it up again? Is God disappointed today? Imagine waking up without that tightness in your chest. That's not careless faith. That's secure faith. And secure faith produces change far deeper than fear ever could. The happiness that comes quietly. This is where happiness comes in. Not loud happiness, not hype, but the kind that feels like relief, like finally putting something heavy down. The happiness of knowing I am not fighting for God's acceptance anymore. You're walking with Him. A moment to breathe. Take a breath right now, not because everything is perfect, but because you don't have to be perfect to be held. That constant anxiety was never from God. Final prayer, short and quiet. God, I've been afraid for a long time, afraid of being rejected, afraid of failing again, but I'm tired of running in my mind.
If you are still here with me, I choose to rest. Stay with me. Amen. Final word. Ending line. If you feel calmer right now, if something inside you feels lighter, that's not coincidence. That's what happens when fear loosens its grip. You are not alone. God saw you here.